The Great Betrayal. How Republican voices fail the people while liberal pundits stay silent. The American working class is under siege. While wages stagnate, costs soar, and workers' rights erode, the voices that claim to represent the people on both sides of the political spectrum fail us. The Republican talking heads rake in millions, building empires off their man-of-the-people personas, while the left's supposed champions sit in silence, complicit in the grand betrayal. The conservative machine, selling out the working-class Republican media titans like Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, and Joe Rogan have amassed enormous wealth, wielding platforms that command millions of loyal listeners. They present themselves as defenders of real Americans. But who do they truly serve? Alex Jones. Once a renegade voice, his conspiracy-laden rhetoric has morphed into a money-making scheme. InfoWars generated over $53 million annually, much of it profiting off the fears of working-class conservatives. Meanwhile, Jones lives a life of luxury, far removed from the struggles of his listeners. Tucker Carlson, with a net worth of $30 million, Carlson regularly rails against elites while attending exclusive events and cashing in on a lucrative television career. His messaging often pits workers against one another instead of addressing systemic issues perpetuated by the very elites he claims to oppose. Joe Rogan. At $120 million, Rogan's empire is built on appealing to disillusioned individuals searching for truth. While his platform occasionally sparks genuine dialogue, it often amplifies divisive narratives that distract from the corporate exploitation harming both conservatives and liberals alike. These voices package resentment and sell it to working-class Americans as patriotism. They direct blame toward immigrants, minorities, and progressive policies while protecting the wealthiest elites, billionaires like Donald Trump and Elon Musk, who exploit the very workers these hosts claim to champion. The deafening silence of liberal pundits on the other side of the aisle. Where are the champions of the working class? Liberal commentators like Randy Rhoads, Tom Hartman, and Chris Hedges have significantly smaller platforms and less financial clout. While they've spoken out on critical issues, their voices are often drowned out by the corporate media's preference for entertainment over substance. The left's silence. Despite possessing the rhetoric of compassion, the Democratic establishment and its pundit allies frequently fail to act decisively for workers. Immigration reform, labor protections, and universal health care remain elusive. The silence on issues like workers' compensation, wage theft, and the class war leaves a void that only deepens the disillusionment. The problem of access. Many progressive voices are relegated to niche platforms, unable to compete with the financial might of conservative media. This imbalance allows the narrative to shift further right, while left-leaning pundits and politicians focus on appeasing donors rather than rallying the working class. The workers' reality. A class war ignored. The class war in America is not new, but it has escalated to unprecedented levels. Wealth inequality is at its peak, with billionaires hoarding resources while millions of Americans struggle to make ends meet. Yet, both parties and their media allies prioritize protecting the status quo. Immigrants as scapegoats. Republican rhetoric often demonizes immigrants, portraying them as threats to jobs and public safety. Meanwhile, the reality is that immigrants are vital to the American economy, performing essential work often ignored by citizens. Instead of uniting workers, these narratives create division, corporate control of both parties. Democrats, too, are guilty of catering to elite interests. From Wall Street bailouts to silence on Amazon's union-busting tactics, the party that claims to represent workers has repeatedly sold out its base. America's descent into authoritarianism, the rise of authoritarian rhetoric on both sides mirrors historical fascist movements. The normalization of scapegoating, corporate control, and erosion of rights is reminiscent of the early 20th century, when working people were similarly divided and conquered by propaganda. Christian conservatives misled. Many conservative Christians are being manipulated by charismatic elites who twist religious values to serve a capitalist agenda. Figures like Trump and Musk are idolized as saviors, despite embodying the very greed and corruption that Jesus condemned. The left's failure to counteract. Without a strong opposition, the progressive left has failed to mount a meaningful resistance. Silence in the face of injustice enables the continued erosion of workers' rights and democratic values. A call to action America is being sold a lie. Conservative pundits grow rich off the division they sow, while liberal voices remain passive, failing to inspire or mobilize. The class war isn't coming. It's here, and it's being waged by billionaires and their neighbors against the rest of us. It's time to reject the false idols of both parties and demand true representation. Workers, immigrants, and all marginalized groups must unite to reclaim their voices and fight for justice. History will remember those who stood silent in the face of oppression. Let us ensure we are not among them. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Frederick Douglass.